Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsor, Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour service support, Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And right now you can actually choose from a range of premium printing options and materials. And the company has also printed many successful Kickstarter campaigns. Some of you have even heard about on this very show. Sam Quinton is one of them. He actually showed off what Mixum can do on 47 Furious Tales, because that's who prints that book. And they right now offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com. And right now they're running an amazing promotion where listeners to my show can drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of a current order to get a 5% discount on their first order. So that's Mixam.com. Type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of your current order to receive 5% off that very order, and every percentage point counts. I'm sure my guests today are going to attest to that. And without further ado, I have the comic creative team of Rob Multari, who's been on once before, and Mog Park. And I made sure I didn't say the S. I was tempted to, but it's Park, so I just want to make sure I said that correctly. And so welcome to the show, because I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot going on with both of you. Your Kickstarter is killing it. Very high goal. You are fully funded. The book is happening, and that book is Snowpaw. It also is sort of set in a little bit of a bigger world, but we're going to get to that in 1 second here. So what is the basic premise of Snowpaw? Even though I've been reading the live reads, I know that some people who might be hearing about this for the first time might not know.
Right on. So in 19th century Scotland, a fierce heroine with an adventurous spirit nearly gives in to the social expectations of her time. But a trite fairy tale ending is not meant to be, as Cyrilla McKinley discovers her werewolf lineage. Her eyes are open to the existence of supernatural beings and creatures of fantasy.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. and that's only half the live read. So clearly. So obviously there's a lot of stuff going on. And I kind of want to dive and go a step backwards, because this is part of Nightwolf to some degree, which is your first book. And Nightwolf is 200 years after, I believe. And that's 5 issues. I think that's gathered in a trade at this point. I think it's on hiatus. There's some more to that story, I believe. But where did the idea for Snowpaw come from? Because Snowpaw, I think, is in Nightwolf, if I'm correct.
Yes. So, So
there's a lot of stuff going on with this. Because it's more than just this little comic that's sort of an aside. I mean, it fits into the bigger picture and the bigger puzzle pieces, I guess.
Yeah. So with Nightwolf, it kind of focuses more around a certain area and around Nightwolf and his kind of development. And Snowpaw is his mentor during that series. And the next issue of Nightwolf comes out in spring after this one's fulfilled. So where it's kind of like going to be a rotating thing, we're between the two. But this series, Snowpaw, does take place 200 years in the past, and it's Snowpaw's origin story in 19th century Scotland, basically showing, as you were saying, it's a bigger world building, story, whereas it's opening up to more creatures, more hidden, fairy tale and, supernatural creatures that I didn't get a chance to play with in the Nightwolf series because it was kind of more laser focused on that particular story arc. Whereas this kind of it's injecting hidden creatures that are of the local lore. And as they move around Europe, there'll be different, local European lore creatures hidden throughout the book, which was kind of a fun Easter egg thing that we did, for the show that these creatures exist within this world, but humans are oblivious to it. But once you kind of become aware of them, you see them everywhere.
And then even going further into this, because obviously certain rules are set up because of Nightwolf. and I think it's clear that you can't kill Snowball off. You know, I think it's pretty clear that that's not going to happen, and certain things like an arm of hers can't be cut off, and other things of that nature. And so, and also because then Nightwolf doesn't make sense. And so, what is that like for you? Because you have certain rules to play with, but you also have, I would say, 200 years where some of the characters could technically die and have no impact on Nightwolf. And so it's a weird position to be in because when you start building out a world, and the closest world I think of is Avatar: The Last Airbender, and that world where the Kyoshi series takes place 400 years before, really Avatar Roku's time,
Mm-hmm.
and almost 600 years before Aang's, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's certain things you can and there's certain things you can't do. And so what is that like for you as the writer, and even for you, Mog, as the artist, to understand the parameters you're playing with, because you have a lot of freedom in certain areas and very little freedom in others?
So with as far as like where she is mentally and in Nightwolf, this basically between the 200-year span kind of builds up to who she is in this present time with Nightwolf. So there's a lot of things that happen. She experiences life and more longer than most normal people would, right? So she gets heartache, she experiences pain, suffering, as well as joy, happiness. There's a lot of things that happen. I mean, just because she doesn't die doesn't mean she can't be terribly hurt. Werewolves tend to have a faster healing metabolism. So, things can happen to her in between now and then. Doesn't necessarily mean she's going to die, but, stuff can happen. There are characters that do come and go through this series. Again, it's like this series is like watching a lifetime of someone grow and develop into who they are, into it's watching the adolescent or teenager growing into like a middle-aged adult kind of a situation, but with longer years in between. So there's just so much that I can play with, so much I can do. I feel like it's not so much that I'm limited; it's that I have basically a timeline that I can explore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could give a really good analogy. Everybody's gone bowling, right?
Right.
So sometimes when you go bowling and you suck at bowling, you have the bumpers up. And the way I view this with Nightwolf is that you have some bumpers up and you have some boundaries set, but you also have a lot of playing and a lot of field to play on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very interesting thing because most people don't get to play in that world, and it's super fascinating. And I'm curious on the art side of things what that is like for you, Mog, because it is understanding where Snowpaw is, but then you get 200 years backwards, and you can make her, obviously younger and look a little more naive and a little, I don't want to say less dirty, but a little more pure to some degree. Because if you're living for 200 years, I mean, no offense to anybody, and interpret it how you will, you're going to have wear on you, and you're going to have different expressions, and things are going to change. And even the way you conduct yourself is going to change because you've seen some shit, if you're 200 years old, lack of a better word. So I'm curious from an artistic standpoint what that is like for you to play in this field, because Rob, obviously you're the writer and Mark is doing the art, and it must be very cool to do that as well, knowing that you know what the future already looks like to some degree artistically.
Honestly, I think because it's the beginning of everything, you just have it's a blank stage where you start everything fresh. So it was easy to express her innocence, almost like a different character than she is now portrayed in Nightwolf. So that part was actually not hard. So that part was okay. And whereas the historical parts and the backgrounds and the costumes and all of that, in fact, I felt there was more playroom because a lot of the historical things gets lost, and then coupled with supernatural elements as well as fantasy elements is mixed in. So you can always kind of make it up. And then, I mean, we're not sticking 100% stickler to how things exactly were. That's where the creativity comes in. And that part actually, for me personally, gave me more freedom to there really was no limitation in that. I think if it was an urban setting, which is now with the cell phones and all of that, and then the kind of clothing, that for me would have been more. I would probably have to just study more, and I don't know. I think I have to stick more to the, like you say, the bumpers in the bowling. So yeah.
And also, what I like about this is that to even go further into this, it's kind of nice that you went international, where she is a strong farm girl in the Scottish Highlands in the 19th century. And obviously, you know, I'm not a Scottish expert, so I don't want to go and start making proclamations about the fine people in Scotland. But you know, it is nice to see something that's not, you know, starting in America in a lot of ways in a comic. You know, there's a bunch of comics that I'm reading and checking out that obviously are in America, and also have a girl who's saying, you know, screw what I'm supposed to do. You know, I like strong women. I tend to date strong women, and I tend to like badass chicks also. And so what was this like really even building that out? Because this character in a lot of ways is a role model. And I'm not saying she's perfect, but it's a very interesting character at this point to have a strong female character that isn't sexualized, you know. And obviously my background is that I love Zenescope. And those characters in the story position aren't really sexualized, but on the covers, it's pretty close to smut. And I'm guilty of it. And I'm friends with Ralph Tedesco. He's been on my show, and they know I'm going to say this because I also say if you want to make money, Zenescope's a really good place to make money in. So they don't deny it either. They have Z-rated covers. I mean, let's not pretend here. We're all adults in the room. We all understand what's going on. But what is that like for both of you? Because obviously you're creating a very strong female character, and then Maud, you're a strong one. And I would imagine, you know, not to sort of come off a little sexist, but it must be nice to actually get to draw a strong female character that women can look up to as well.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. This is kind of a spoiler, but because this is the Genesis, she's right now not a role model.
I thought you were going to say she's not a woman, and I was going to be like, oh my God. Let me explain when you said that. Okay, so politically incorrect. I was going to be like, spoiler, she's not a woman yet. And I'm like, thank God that I got that right, because that would have been really bad. But continue, please.
No, so it's just, I think the cool thing is you're going to see a lot of vulnerability, a lot of weaknesses. And I think that's one of the key things that a lot of people do like to see in characters. That way we want to root for them. We want them to go through a lot of difficulties. We want to see more of their weakness. And in a way, showing all of that is a part of it also a strength. So that certain quality was introduced and is going to be continually introduced. And I think that's fine. This is beyond, I think, femininity or masculinity. So I think for me, Rob writes a very interesting character, very character where I can stick with the character. Because usually, sometimes when we read mangas or comic books, sometimes we don't like the main characters. We end up liking the support characters more. But in this case, Rob made sure that she's not perfect, and I think that's part of her strength. So, and as for femininity and all of that, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. For once, you're not kind of sexualizing it, but also in the same time, there's going to be scenes where she's going to wear different outfits too. So we have room to play with that as well. It's not always limited. I mean, everything is up for grabs in a way for creativity wise. And yeah, I hope I answered your question.
There's no right or wrong answer. As long as I got her sexuality down, we're okay, and her gender down, we're fine.
Yeah.
Thank God, because I would have been really bad. I would have just left in shame.
No, I mean, you know, for this particular story, like I didn't want, like, you know, I think in Nightwolf you see a little bit more like of her maturity, of her sexuality in a way, but it's not over flaunted. Even my most sexy covers, like aren't really like overly sexy. They're not like, you know, floozy looking covers. Because it's still like, you know, it's her battle outfit's been torn over the years, so it may have a little bit more reveal of stuff, but it's not like you're flat out, hey, here they are. You know what I mean? You're not flat out seeing werewolf boobs.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing
well,
wrong
right,
with
but
that.
yeah.
You're
I mean,
into.
in the same sense,
I
like
have a
we
friend
kids in
who's
this
a
house.
furry fan, so
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
No,
My
there's
friends
definitely
make money.
nothing wrong with that, and you know, anybody who can make money doing it, give all the power to them. And you know, I know a lot of people who, you know, who do make money off of stuff like that.
I mean, I could tell you right now who's killing it. IDW.
Yeah.
The Blue Rat. Come on, guys. Sonic the Hedgehog. This isn't hard.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, if we go back to, you know, the core of the furries here, that's it. That's it. Let's not pretend. It killed in the box office. I mean, Jim Carrey, one of his best roles is Dr. Eggman. Come on. King of the furries here. We call things the way they should be called on this show. But continue.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you know, for me, like I have 3 kids in my house, right? And I don't, you know, and these books are all over the place. So it's not, you know, I don't want to have like, you know, these things hanging out where my kids can just walk up and be like, what you know, in the same sense, so like with my daughter turning 4, like she's going to be eventually getting into reading and you know, and I want her to get into comic books because, you know, that's to me, like that's the next generation of readers. You know, you got to cultivate that, right? And I want some, and it felt like there hasn't been a lot of that for kids these days. And I'm not saying that like this book is for kids, just for kids. I mean, really, it's an all ages book. I'd say 10 plus. You know, adults can enjoy it. You know, kids can get the gist of it. But it's also, like I said, developing this strong female into a role model and making it so that like, you know, it's kind of like a Wonder Woman-esque character eventually down the pipeline, but you get to see this development. Whereas like with Wonder Woman, it was Wonder Woman from the beginning, right? I mean, even from the very get-go, you didn't get to see a lot of her development over time. Whereas this is kind of like you get to see, you know, if you have like a perfect like superhero who has no flaws, I mean, you know, then it kind of gets boring and overdone. Like, I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, I like a good Superman story, but like Kryptonite and the Red Sun being his only 2, you know, Achilles heels, you know, and for the most part, it's the same thing. He flies in, saves the day, flies out, you know, saves Lois. You know, like how many times can you really do that, you know? So you got to have a little bit more flaw, a little bit more character, a little more interest in there. And I kind of like, you know, being able to inject a little bit more natural feel of things. Like, you know, with in this particular issue, there's scenes where she's having interactions with, you know, with her father, and it's an actual father-daughter relationship where, like, you know, she's an 18-year-old girl fighting, you know, her father's wishes, you know, and they butt heads, and they're, you know, both stubborn, and you know, but then on the other hand, like, you know, towards the end of the book, then they have like that loving father-daughter relationship. So it's like you know, that typical, you know, you have a family, they fight, they love. It's, you know, it's, you see that there's a relationship. It's an actual something that people can relate to.
And this is something that I thoroughly enjoy about your writing is that, you know, you're writing an actual story, and, you know, joking aside, you're not over sexualizing characters. You're not really injecting any of that in there, and you're actually providing a book that. So one of the problems, I don't have kids yet, but at some point I'm gonna have kids, and hopefully in the next, you know, 2, 3, 4 years is ideally when I'm gonna start having kids. I'm 28, so when in my 30s I'm gonna start. And one of the things that I'm gonna be concerned about, and I'm very concerned about with what's going on Netflix and a variety of other stuff, is that adulthood is coming on a lot quicker for kids at this point. And I'm going to be very careful on what I give my kids to read, what I don't give my kids to read. I'm going to give, if I have a son, stuff different to read than I'm going to give my daughter. And certainly, and even with comics and all that stuff. And knowing how you read and what I've seen of this book and Nightwolf, you know, I feel very comfortable that I feel kind of giving my 8-year-old, you know, this book. I think my 8-year-old would understand it if I had one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, it's very important to get kids to read books and give them a little bit of maturity, and also give them books that have consequences, but also hitting that niche. And also it's important that comics are comics, and that it's not political, and that there's nothing in the real world in the book in a lot of ways, beyond humanity's interactions and hitting that niche. And I think a lot of people and a lot of creators in a lot of ways have forgotten that, where they're trying to make statements or they're trying to make money or they're trying to make bank, and they're forgetting the core element of this is making a good story, and everything else will follow. And so, I mean, I'm curious how both of you feel about that, because that's something I'm noticing. And obviously, I'm not a content creator right now. I'm more commenting on it.
Mhm.
But after interviewing so many people in the last 8 years across so many facets, I mean, I'm starting to notice a lot of trends like this where a lot of people I feel like are not writing comics for comics. They're writing it for everything but comics. And it's kind of a crazy world. I think you're doing the opposite. And I think that's why your project did really well funding. And I don't even think much of the big tiers were picked up on your thing. I think you did it in a lot of small tiers.
Mhm. Oh yeah, there's been a lot of there's a lot of new people jumping in, and they're not quite sold into Nightwolf yet, which is fine because they don't have to read Nightwolf to get this. Like, this is an entirely different, series with similar things, and I want it to be able to stand on its own. And so yeah, I think there's a lot of where they're more interested in the current story that they're seeing, and that's totally fine. And also, I have a lot of returning members of my wolf pack, if you will, who have backed Nightwolf, who are coming and they want the single issue because they already have everything else. So this right now is almost like it's like at this point I'm 10 people away from having tied my highest backing campaign.
Woo-hoo!
So yeah, we're almost there. And we have 9 days left? Less?
Yeah, man.
8 days to go. So I mean, no doubt that this is going to be, it's going to be a contender. So yeah, I mean, it's for me. Like, I feel like being able to tell a story for like that for everybody to enjoy, I think
Yes.
is a broader audience and people for more longevity than having where it's a niche, a completely niche for one age or another. And I have seen that, like I had to be able, like my two boys are older than they're 13 and 11. So I've had to like kind of cater to what they were watching and seeing, as they were growing up. So like there's times where I even had to bust out like Batman the Animated Series from the 90s or the X-Men from the 90s, because there was stuff that I was like, I don't want them watching this. Like, I don't even like, this is like one thing. It's not only is it like not good for them as far as education wise or even like just age appropriateness wise, but it's just stupid. And
So
stupid for stupidity's sake is just dumb.
I'll give a good example of this. So I'm 28, so I think I'm significantly younger than you. I don't know how old you are, Rob, by any chance. So we're 11 years apart, so we're sort of different generations. I didn't learn the word sexy until I was like 14 or 15. In reality, my friends have a sister who is 10 years younger than we are. And so she's actually 9 years younger now. But she learned the word sexy when she was 11. So that should give an idea. So it's about a generation apart. So the generation beneath mine, which is 10 years, learned a word that I learned 3 years earlier. And then I would imagine that the generation after hers is going to learn that word, a few years earlier. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have 5-year-olds saying that word. Mm-hmm. And that's what's sort of happening. And it's very concerning. And I mean, I see projects on Kickstarter. And look, I'm all for nudity if it sells your book. I'm all for X-rated covers. Whatever is going to sell your book, I get it because it's a business. But at the same time, I'm also seeing that at this point, it's now that's not on the cover. It's one thing. In the book, though, it gets complicated, I think. And I think comics, and look, I'm not going to tell anybody how to run their business, but I think that there has to be real questions asked. And I think it's nice to see wholesome comics. I mean, Otis Frampton, who did Oddly Normal, was on my show twice. And he has a comic that's meant for kids. And it's really a weird book because it's in the kids section at Barnes & Noble. It's a graphic novel that's in the kids section. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a weird thing. And I mean, I think a lot of questions have to be raised, and I sort of appreciate the fact that you're doing a book that is not what everybody else is doing in the industry right now.
Yeah,
And
I'm kind of like
very
stuck that
important.
way. I've always been the kind that's like, I'm going to write what I want to write, and if people like it, cool.
The cool thing about Rob's Snowpaw story is he's targeting a general mass of people. So the genre itself is not a niche. It's not specifically horror. It's not specifically action or whatever it is. It's got a combination of everything that's very good and wholesome. That's one thing. And also, I do like, if you ever know about his backstory, Rob's backstory is that he, kind of segueing back to your previous question, he started writing and enjoying comics just because he also had trouble reading, because you talked about reading. So he's
We went
making,
through all of this, but continue. It's important. It's important.
yeah, so he understands. Sorry, Rob, you exist next to me, but Rob understands what it's like to be reading, and he puts his visual perspective as well as a visual sense, aesthetic, as well as storytelling. So I don't really recommend, especially independent comics. It's sometimes a hit and miss, but definitely with Rob's, I can solidly say it's a wholesome, good story, and it can appeal to a wide variety of mass. It's not just because you see werewolves or something. It's not going to be particularly like horrific. Yes, there's going to be horror. Yes, there's going to be some nude stuff, because why? They change when you change, the clothes comes off. Okay, it's just how it is. They're animals. but
But it has to be done tastefully.
Don't worry too much about it.
But the difference is that you're not doing nudity for the sake of nudity. It's complicated. So I just backed a project, and there's a lot of nudity in it. And I'm excited for the book. It's Isaac Fox's book, and it looks like an awesome book. And it's Suck You Busted. And, and then Dan Mendoza has Zombie Trap. I think it's pretty safe to say with Zombie Trap, you know what you're getting. Or, J.S. Moore is going to have Cherry Tart or Cherry Pop coming out. If you don't know what that book is before you enter it, I'm sorry, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. Everybody knows what Cherry Tart is, I think, or Cherry Pop is. I forget which it is. The idea is that, but when I'm coming into your book, I'm sort of expecting sort of wholesome. And if there's a little nudity, that's fine because things happen. So I think it's very important, and I also think it is more general in that it's not offensive, and I think that things are aimed at kids, and the entire comic industry is broken as an entity, because the biggest failure is when DC and Marvel got out of the supermarkets, and they haven't figured out how to solve that issue, and it's a generation that has been lost. And if DC and Marvel solve that problem and get comics down to $1.50 at the spinner rack in the aisles of the supermarket, they will rebuild an entire business of comic books, which will then increase the IP's values that overshadow them. And so you'll increase the base IP that will increase the overall movie IP and all the licensing products, and then you'll actually allow for the base to continue, which is where all the movies, all the animated, all the products, all the licensing gets pulled out of. But without that base IP level, you're going to have a problem moving forward, and that's what's coming down the pike for Marvel and DC in the next 10 years. It's a big issue. But I digress. That's me pontificating. The other thing I like about this as well is that we're really dealing with the Monokai's background. I think I got that right?
Yes. Yep, Monokai.
See, I pay attention. I listen to Rob Anderson and you speak. I got all these names down. All of them. So that's the other thing that I like about this as well, and this entire project, is that if you've read Nightwolf, this provides further insight into a lot of other stuff and even world building. And if anybody knows anything about comics, there are really two major things that dictate comics, I feel. It's characters and the world. And depending on the story and what's going on, the world is either the whole driver or it's the characters. And in this one, I think the character is really driving it. But I think also, if you read the first 5 issues in Nightwolf, we're now getting to what Nightwolf led. We're going on the path up to Nightwolf, essentially, with Snowpaw. And we're now seeing how the world has evolved and why there's a problem with these werewolves and a variety of other stuff, and how this problem sort of started. And it's very important, I think, because you don't need to read Nightwolf to understand it, and you don't need to read Snowpaw to understand what's going on in Nightwolf. But if you read both, you have more insight into it. And it's very cool when something like that happens, because now I have more information at my disposal, and now I'm seeing a bigger picture, and I'm seeing more of an intricate picture.
It's almost like I'm doing a Quentin Tarantino movie. I'm starting with Nightwolf. It was starting at the end, and I'm going to Tarantino back to the beginning.
You're going back to the future, starting with 2.
Yeah.
Or what you're doing is that you watch episode 4, then you watch 1, 2, and 3, and no. Well, what is it? The machete position, where you watch episode 5, and then you watch episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4 as a flashback, and then you finish with 6. It's like the Vader machete order, where you watch.
It kind of apparently, like, it's going to be a hit, because the fact that, like, it's going crazy orders, like, the big trilogies and but I guess I don't know, whatever you call with now there's 9.
There's technically like 14.
Yeah. I mean, if you really count them all, it's like, at this point I don't even know what's going on.
Oh, that's a good question. We're going to ask that question a little later to that person. But obviously, I do want to get into a bunch of stuff that's super, super interesting with all of this. And the stuff I want to talk about is that, and I think everybody wants to talk about it, is that what was it like to drop a 10K goal? Because you're not the only one who's doing that now. It's safe to say Kickstarter is really hot right now. I think it's the hottest crowdfunding platform. A lot of people are doing well on it. I'm coming over to Kickstarter, guys. I joined the crew. My project is going to be probably approved this Friday. I'm probably going to launch November 2nd. November 1st or November 2nd, depending on when I could pull a high-profile guest. I have somebody in mind that if I pull them, you're all going to hate me. But what was that like? Because that's a lot. That's a big indie position in a lot of ways.
So it kind of all started with like Nightwolf issue 5. I usually, prior to that, is where I would set a $5,000 goal. Which was the reason I set it at 5,000 was so my first failed Kickstarter in 2016 actually was a 20,000 goal, and it was a failed launch because I only raised $5,000. So that's kind of like why the next time I came back around, I had it at 5, and I managed to get over that, and then it kept building and building and building, and so I know, like, my last 2 campaigns prior to issue 5 went over 10K. And so knowing that I hit it twice before, even at a $5,000 goal, I knew it was reachable, but it was also very nerve-wracking. And a friend of mine, John Eddingfield II, he actually told me, he's like, dude, you've done it twice. You need that, and at that point I was like putting like art on credit cards and to try and like get everything finished prior to the launch. And I was like, well, I got this much credit card debt. I need to hit this much to be able to still print.
Let's even talk about that. Not to go into too much finances. I was on Josh, just joshing last night. And I think it's a pretty clear position where I stand, where one of the reasons why I'm not producing comics, and I spoke about this on a bunch of other people's podcasts, is that I have economic commitments to a variety of things, including my Roth IRA. To a certain percentage has to go into my brokerage account. Certain stuff goes into my crypto position. Certain things go into spec books and a variety of other stuff. And I know that I can produce a rate of return on certain things. And also, I don't want to go into debt. Producing comics is expensive. And so what is that like for you to say, hey, how am I going to service this debt? Because it's super tricky when you're dealing with that, getting things funded, paying for art. Obviously, I don't think people fully understand how complicated it is and how expensive comics gets.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever
I mean,
printing, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty pricey, and especially when you're getting high quality art coming from one of the top artists out there. Hint, hint, wink, wink, Mog. So yeah, usually I have like freelance web design jobs paying for the art and stuff, but sometimes when if now that my series Nightwolf has been kind of going and picking up speed, it's like, okay, well, I don't have a job lined up right now, but I know I'm going to have another one eventually, or the Kickstarter will pay for it, whatever. So at that point I was like, all right, well, I need to do this to get this out at this time. So I was like, you know what? I got this credit card that I use for my creative business. I dropped it on that. The Kickstarter funded, like I said, that 10K goal was what I needed to even be able to print the book, plus pay for the remainder of the art that I didn't have. And it was a gamble that it worked, and so I was like, all right, cool, and that was my $20,000 plus campaign. So, and I think what people don't understand too is just because I had a very, very successful campaign last time for issue 5, and it was $21,000. That was still a lot of that. You got to think almost 10K of that was paying off that credit card for the art. And then the rest of that was paying for the printing, paying for the tchotchkes.
So I'll give people numbers that'll give more insight because I buy and sell books on eBay. So I buy a book from Zenescope for $25, and then I sell that book for $60. I didn't make $60. eBay takes 13%. Now they take 13%. I'm paying $11 shipping. I charge my buyer $11, so I pulled in $71. eBay takes 13% of that. Now my buyer pays the taxes, so I don't have to worry about tax as far as sales tax. So after that, I'm now down, just to make it easy, I'm down about $7, $11, $18 comes out of that, 71, and then plus 25, and whatever's left over, and then minus a Gemini and some bubble wrap, you got to factor that in. That's what I make on the book because I pay myself back. And so when you're running a Kickstarter, it's very similar positions where you have to pay for the printing, you pay for shipping, you have to pay for the art. It's also the outlay of money, and it's a variety of other stuff. And that's why people might have done $100,000 in Kickstarter, but if you have 50 books, variants, you didn't make $100K. You might have lost money on a $100,000 campaign. So that's what I think people don't understand is that effort goes into things. And people say, oh, snap, you've done really well on Kickstarter. You just did a $21,000 Kickstarter. You didn't make $21,000. And it's a big misconception.
Oh, yeah. None of that went into my pocket. If anything, I spent more than that. And then, on top of that, I was still paying, with Carlos, I usually pay him half and half. With Mog, we do every 2-3 pages, and I pay her. So it's, so at that time, I was also paying for Nightwolf and Snowpaw at the same time. And I was like, all right, credit card. So that's kind of again, where I'm at right now is.
And so even to ask Mog, I'm not going to ask about the money, but what is that like when you're doing both Nightwolf and working on Nightwolf and doing some stuff with Snowpaw and sort of switching between the two? Because while they're similar, they're also very different books.
Well, Mog isn't the Nightwolf artist. That's Carlos Herrera. Mog is so that I completely separated the two.
Yeah.
So that it had a different feel. So basically what I did was I took Carlos's character designs and handed them to Mog and said, make these yours.
So even going off of that, because what is that like that you have somebody else's art and then you get to make it your own? Because obviously, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to go and edit somebody else's podcast that was just edited. I don't want to touch other people's works. I don't feel comfortable. Even I'm not a comic editor, but I'll use Chuck Pino because I don't think he's gonna mind me using. If I knew he worked on a book and then he worked on your book and then you came to me, I might not want to touch it just because obviously I know somebody. And then it's also weird if another editor already worked on it. I'm like, it's kind of weird for me to work on something that's already been edited and been modded and been played with and been made suggestions to. For me, I don't want to touch other people's stuff that's done per se. So I'm curious how you felt about that and really looking at what's been done with Nightwolf and then say, hey, go make it your own. Like, what was that like for you?
Are you asking Rob or are you asking me?
I'm asking you or
Oh.
Rob, or we could just completely move on from the question. It's completely up to you guys.
Hmm. As artists, for us, like we don't really. I think I can safely say we don't really feel like that. How you are apprehensive? Maybe it's just me, because as long as we do credit Carlos Herrera, we're not shoving him under the rug or anything. He has his whole
Hey,
Nightwolf.
maybe he likes to be under a rug. I'm just saying.
Well,
Yeah.
Carlos is a fan of Mog. As soon as, like I said, this is who I'm gonna get for Snowpaw, and showed him examples, he's like, "Oh yeah, I love this." He's like, "Yes, this is the one."
I don't mind. I mean, I like going under a rug sometimes. If it's cold out and it's snowing, rugs are warm. But anyway, continue.
Like a doormat. What? Okay. So yeah, I always, for me, I have something called once a month I do draw and bid on my Facebook, and I like to do the same thing. I throw a theme, like for example, this month is Final Fantasy 14, and I like to see different interpretations of artists taking on the same character, and that makes me very happy because
Yeah, I mean, especially in comics, that happens very often. I mean, you don't have typically, especially in Marvel and DC. How long does an actual artist have a run these days? I mean, it's not like Jim Lee running X-Men for
Very
a
few
long
have
time.
a 50-issue run. I
Yeah,
mean, look at the team of Scott Snyder and Greg Capello
yeah,
or Capello. Like, they had a 50-plus run on that book, but that's
that's
not.
rare these days. Yeah, I mean, like artists, I feel switch almost like at least once a year, if not more.
Artists switch companies once every 2 or 3 years on average now, which is
Yeah.
insane. There are DC artists who go to Marvel and they go back to DC, and they go to Image for 3 years, and then they come back to DC, then they go back to Marvel, then they go back to Image, and then they wind up in Wildstorm, and then they settle in Titan.
and then we
Which,
go to Kickstarter.
which, by the way, Titan Comics, come December, they're going to be the hottest comic company on the market, and I'm not going to say why, but they're gonna. I don't have a book with Titan, or do I? You never know. No, I don't have a book with Titan. Everybody, if anything, I'm going to go to like a Blaze Media, or I'll go to some like really obscure company that nobody ever heard of, and I'll make that company. I'll bring all my followers, all but 10. My 10 followers and me will be like the exiled tribe out of Egypt. It'll be great. anyway. So. I mean, I just find it interesting because again, I'm not an artist, and I just feel a certain way that I don't want to touch other people's works. Like, it feels weird to me, and I don't know if other people feel that way. Maybe people don't. I mean, again, I'm not an artist. I am a commenter on comics, so I could be completely talking out of my ass when I'm saying half the stuff I'm saying on this. But I'm curious because it's not really my thing as far as I personally don't want to touch other people's works as far as that they developed.
And I think too, like, again, that goes back to the whole, like, comics are just, it's used to being kind of picked up by somebody else. Even when I was doing my trade paperback, I included 4 different writers doing 4 pages of extra art or extra story for my team to do during that time. And, for me, it was like, as long as they were, like, I gave them a basic, like, this is the general gist. And as long as they kind of stay within the rules of the world, they had free reign to do everything else. And for the most part, like, I didn't have to do too much tweaking Just kind of maybe a few things I was like, okay, go a little bit more this way, or this character would say this like this, kind of a situation. But like other than that, it's as long as like it stays within the world and the storytelling, I was happy to have them play in my sandbox. And again, with Carlos, he would have loved to done Snowbob, but again, I told him, between like keeping him focused on doing Nightwolf and also having a female, I wanted to have a female team to kind of keep that female perspective. When I was looking at artists and I found Mog and it had suggested this, it was like I didn't even have to say much. Like Carlos is like, "Yep, I love it. Yeah, I love the style." So it was like he was happy that like somebody was going to be taking, like, because it's his baby too. In the end of the day, so somebody helping to kind of raise her, Snowpaw up to another level, and so I think, and both Carlos and I agree that Mom did an amazing job with it, and we're both very happy that she's involved in the project.
Well, I would talk about Lone Wolf and Cub, but I don't think that's the appropriate thing, because it's I notice it's right behind you. That's why I know what those books look like. I know it because I grew up on it in a lot of ways, and read all of it, and I own all of it. So there you go. I had a Spinal Tap, and the story behind Lone Wolf and Cub and how I came into it is I had a spinal tap on something, and you're not supposed to move it. You get a spinal tap. Mm-hmm. And so me being the manga lover that I am, I decided to go to Barnes & Noble after my spinal tap and pick up like 5 issues of Lone Wolf and Cub. And on the way home, I threw up. But I enjoyed Lone Wolf and Cub for the rest of the day. So,
Like, it was worth it. It was worth it.
I mean, guys, I had a caramel frap after I threw up. So I had a coffee taste in my mouth, which washed it out. But Lone Wolf and Cub is awesome. So that's my Lone Wolf and Cub story. And since we're on werewolves, it makes sense. But see, it had a happy ending. So what, guys? Starbucks is 50 years old. They're my next sponsor. This would be the point where I would do a live read, but since you're the only one who is the live read, it'd be a little awkward if I did a live read of your thing. I digress. But I do want to talk about rewards, because obviously that's my role here. I want to sell a bunch of your books for everybody out there. Just want to make sure nobody's bothering me on all that. Oh, good. I checked the comments section to make sure there's no pending questions. So obviously we're going to go through rewards here. So this is the digital reward, which is $5. The shipping is killer on this. I just want to make it clear. Shipping is off the chart. Just saying. And then, and I'm going to steal something out of Rob Anderson's playbook here. Table prices here. Table prices. I give credit where credit's due. This is Mog's cover, and obviously, I think you get the digital edition, so you don't have to crack open the right. Am I wrong on this one?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who do that, who'll get like just the physical edition and then read the digital. Or there's also the people like me who prefer to read the actual book. I mean, the digital, I think, messes with my vision and my dyslexia, so I kind of tend to stay away from it. But I still, I like to get them and back them for other people, But
so for me, what it is that sometimes, it is, I throw all my digital books into one file, and sometimes it's late at night and I don't feel like turning on the light, and so I like to read books physically as well, especially on Kickstarter. But sometimes, I'm like, oh man, I'm going through my entire file. I'm like, oh man, I haven't read Snowpaw in a while, or I haven't read The Illusion Witch in a while, or I haven't read, Might in a while. Or conversely, sometimes, the book's in the mail, and I'm like, hey, if the person sends me the digital, I want to read the story ahead of time too.
Oh yeah, and I make sure that the digital goes out as soon as possible. Like, after this campaign, once like the fulfillment surveys are all filled out, boom, you're getting your digital.
That's what I'm planning to do with all 24 of my books. In my digital bundle pack, $12, guys, $24. Minimum $24. I have people bothering me in the last hour to see if they could still join my digital bundle. I never thought I was that popular. If only I was that popular in high school, we would be all in a much better place. But anyhow, what's the story behind this cover? Because I am super curious, and even going further into that, obviously I believe that technically this is sort of cover A, that the interior artist should get the cover A. So what's the deal behind all this, Mom?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. That's why I always have the covers, the artists doing the cover A. But I will let
Not your turn, Rob.
I've
gone through this.
It's okay. It's fine. Let Rob.
No. I was just agreeing with the cover A. Now it's your turn.
No, whatever he said. Totally fine, man. Totally fine.
Well, why don't you talk about like the thumbnails and then leading up to like the crazy, ground gemstones that you put in this thing.
Yeah, because I was trained traditionally as an illustrator, and the way we were taught, we were very traditional. My major was traditional illustration.
This is the real cover, yeah. This is the real question.
What with this cover, Mark? Okay, so I had free reign in choosing what kind of topic, and I told Rob, I want to kind of maybe fairy tale, but a bit dark, mysterious, and feminine. So I created a bunch of thumbnails for him, and I created about 19. So
yeah,
and I
not 20, not 20. 20 would have
19,
off the job.
19.
So I realized maybe I was just so excited. So, and I think I realized, maybe it's not a good idea. Next time I'm only going to give him 2 choices.
Well, there were so many good ones that like neither of us could pick one. So like we actually polled her Sunday, drawing crew, like her usuals, and we're like, hey, what do you think?
Yeah, we ended up having a poll, and then whichever got the highest vote, we ended up choosing with. However, the cool thing about doing all those 19 thumbnails, I reuse them, and it's going to be shown a little bit here and there in the reward tiers as an add-on. So it was not effort wasted. And also, me and Rob were talking about how we can use this for the next cover and the next cover. So it's really not a waste.
And also, there's this saying, I don't know how keen Rob is on this, but, Corey Hardiman, who just did Sister Mercy, has the sketchbook / the Sister Mercy art book. And so there's covers that he's done, but then there's all these pinups and other stuff that is unused art that's in there. And, a bunch of companies do that. And this is not a new idea. Top Cow's been doing it back in the day in the 90s for years in their swimsuit editions. Robotech in their swimsuit edition has done this. Yes, Robotech has a swimsuit edition. Before anybody asks, it's great. It's legitly like done like Sports Illustrated. And yes, the men are in it. Okay? The men are in it. You want to talk about progression here? Eclipse Comics, way ahead of its time. The men were in it. So I'm just saying, it's an equal offender. But I don't know how keen you're on that idea, but I think that's awesome.
It's funny you say that because we just the second stretch goal is a digital version of her sketches. So it's her it's Mog Park's Snowpaw #1 digital sketchbook. So that's something everybody's going to get for free. As a stretch goal.
See. I don't look at things for a day because I'm actually at my job, and this is what happens. People actually do important things when I'm working. I'm glad I can contribute in my unique way. Anyway, this is obviously that book. This is another one where Catherine Loeb did a cover. And so obviously this is just another variant, and it's just another cool one. And obviously we kind of have more of a 19th century feel. I guess sort of what could have been, I guess is a good way to put it, maybe. I don't know how this story is truly going to go. So I don't want to ruin anything. You choose. And then there's this one as well, which is the Kyle Roberts cover. And this is definitely darker if you're more into the darker realm of things. And everything that's going on with that. I like this tier a lot as well, where this is basically the full digital experience. For those who don't know, shipping is a bitch.
It keeps getting more expensive.
I'm in a slight international crisis where legitimately I cannot send somebody an invoice in the UK on eBay because eBay is set up a certain way that it doesn't allow me to do it. Not to mention that I charge $11 to ship my books on eBay, and it's expensive. So this is the complete catch up for $21, and you're getting all of Nightwolf, and you're getting the first issue of Snowball. And I'm not too sure. Is that digital sketchbook also included in this?
Yes. So everybody who backs the campaign at a digital or a physical will get the digital sketchbook.
I'm just asking a question because it's an incentive to sell digital, because digital is a moneymaker for all parties involved. And obviously I want people to see Mog's sketches, including myself, which means I'm going to have to go back to this project and watch my wallet go cry for about 10 minutes. So anyway, hey, $15 free shipping. It's not that bad. That's like the price of 2 Frappuccinos.
And you get a boatload of freebies.
I'm not even interested in the freebies. I really just want to support what you're doing. So there we go. People send me free copies of books all the time. They're like, why did you back my book? And I'm like, well, I would like to support you. And maybe this isn't the home run. Maybe this is the grand slam. But, if anything I can do to support somebody on their journey to write their next project, I'm more than willing to do so. I think it's very, very important that people understand that, sometimes you have to support creators in ways, and money dictates everything. And I just hope people with my project will support me, or that what goes around comes around, I believe.
Yeah.
So anyway, having said all that, this is another one. This is the Carlos Herrera cover, sort of the digital one. Obviously, it's his baby, and a lot of stuff's going on with this one. And is this the one that's going to be on the digital book?
Yeah, so this originally I had planned just to have this cover as the digital, but then just so many people I've been advertising this one for the last year, even before I brought Mog in, and everybody was like, "Dude, I want that physically. You have to have it." So I was like, "Okay." So yes, this is the physical copy of the Carlos Herrera cover. Which again, it's been as much as his baby, and it's kind of like now this is kind of like a handoff to Mog, and kind of like that was like the transitional piece. Like this is where we're going, make it yours, and
It's like the Olympics, the torch. Thank you. Remember
You're from New York. From New York, so you're Saquon Barkley. And we have Daniel Jones sneaking you the football to get 10 yards. I don't know if anybody got that joke. It's a bad joke, but the Giants won last Sunday, so it's all right. They're not a very good team right now. I'm the first person to say the Cowboys, phenomenal team, the Cowboys, and I don't like the Cowboys either, but they're better than the Eagles. And this is why I can't buy from Zenoscope. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get banned from buying from their virtual live stream on Thanksgiving because they're in Philly and they're all Eagles fans. So just for you, Rob, just for you, I'm willing to die on the bird here. But enough about me. It's all about you. Probably this is another one that's really cool. Chris Williams. And what he's doing, and this is just a wild, trippy cover.
Oh yeah, like Chris Williams. So I've used him several times with my Nightwolf covers as a variant artist, and he and I, we've actually met in person in Philadelphia, as a matter of fact. At the it was
at an Eagles game of all places.
Yeah. So yeah, so we actually at the Keystone Comic Con, which was it's Reed Pops. Or it was. I don't know if they're even still doing it anymore. But it was their stab at going into the Philadelphia area, and so ever since then, like he and I have been really working well together. And he's just an amazing dude, nice guy, and he does some phenomenal cover art for a lot of indies out there. And that's actually another one of the original art pieces that I do have available in the add-ons is that original cover there.
Rob needs the money badly.
And what's funny, because like as much as I paid him for this, what this is selling for, I'm still not making the money back. It's basically just helping recoup.
But even to go into that though, isn't the entire thing with comics is that when you buy variant covers, I mean, I have something in my Kickstarter that is very similar to that, and I understand where the real money is in selling a comic. I understand how much it costs. I understand how expensive it is to produce something. I know exactly what printing costs. My sponsor is a printing company. So I know what people's printing costs, whether you're using Comics Wellsprings, Mix'em, Kaboom, Kablam. There's like 15 others. I know exactly how much all this stuff costs. And I also know how much art costs. I know how much Ivan Tao is. I know how much Sun Kumanaki is. I know how much Garvey is. I know how much Ebas is. I also know that some people are inaccessible. So I know how much Don Matig is. I know how much JP Roth is. Actually, JP Roth is not an artist. So that's why I know how much he costs. But it's the idea that when you're selling the original art, it's only to recoup some of the value that lessens the blow. It's like a variant in a comic shop. I know so much about this, have never run one of these before, which is ludicrous. Like, I know every financial position in Kickstarter, and I've never run one. It's disturbing how I know it too.
That's observations, right?
It's more than that. It's if you speak to people and then you use common sense, and then once you know how much printing costs and how much art costs, it doesn't take a genius to figure out. Not to mention that legitimately, I spent 20 hours writing my copy. My Kickstarter has literally 4 paragraphs of copy. There is like 20 hours to build it. Like, it is beyond complicated. It's the most tedious writing thing I've ever done in my life. This is why I'm only running one Kickstarter a year. Like, legitimately. That's why I'm only running one a year.
You say that now, but once you get the funding and you're like, oh man, you get the Kickstarter bug, and you're like, I got to do more.
But my business is set up so that it's only once a year. That there's a reason why I'm going big or go home. It's the idea that it would be, for me at least, with this project, and then my other project, which is the comic book investing side of things. I'm not running that on Kickstarter because I don't think Kickstarter is going to allow me to play. I don't think they're going to allow me to play on their platform. Not to mention that I could get those ad costs down significantly, and I can do that project cheaper than what Kickstarter will charge me elsewhere on ClickFunnels. But I digress right there. Enough about that. This cover is slamming.
Yeah. So, I don't know, have you ever read Tart by Kevin Joseph and Ludovic Sele?
I know of it. I know of it.
Yeah, it's a Scout book. Scout picked them up, and Kevin does a lot of serializing his books on Kickstarter as well. And he and I have become great friends over the last couple of years. And he actually was one of the writers that I had guests do a 4-page in my trade. And so like that, having that connection and being a fan of Tart and his series, and Ludo's art is so good in the book. I had to have it, especially because he draws like a very like gorgeous female figure. Again, not the over sexualized, but like actual, like, I mean, his art style is, I mean, he's from France. So like he has a lot of traditional art like in his background, and everything he does is gorgeous. So I was like, I saw their last issue that they put out, and I was like, dude, I'm like, Kevin, please, can I get a Ludo cover? So he made the connection, and there we are.
I like his style. It's so. I wonder, does he color his own?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, he does. He does it all. And what's
Wow.
nice about Tart is that like, so this is the Tart's about a time traveling demon hunter, and every time period is a different style that Ludo does. So it just like, so like there's like the Roaring Twenties one where it's like you have that like very similar to like the art of the time, and then there's like a caveman like style one that it's like very like cave like drawing, like but it's still like, detailed, but like it has like that, kind of like a rough feel to it. And then he has like one where like it's a tapestry, half of the story is basically like actual happening like present time versus like there's a tapestry telling a tale at the same time, and he goes back and forth and like showing the two different art styles in one issue was amazing. And so like I said, that was like what sealed, like I had to have like his something from him, in this world.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you haven't checked Tart out, I mean, it's definitely one of my top indie books that I suggest often to anybody who's into indie comics.
No, it looks like a slamming book, and that's why I wanted to talk about it and get into it. And then I'm going to show a few more things. Obviously, pretty much all the variants. So if you want everything, including a blank cover, I think,
Yep, sketch cover.
that's doable. Obviously, it's a little bit cheaper than picking them up all individually. Obviously the Carlos Herrera experience from, Nightwolf and a bunch of other things out there. Obviously, books are cool. And again, some of these books are really hard to find at this point.
And also you get this in that Carlos one, that has a nice little die cut. So you can go, ooh.
And obviously I like books like that because at this stage in the game with print, people say, oh, print's going out of style. Well, I don't think print is going out of style per se, but I think people have to get more creative with print.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're going to have like a premium product, you got to make it worth your while, especially for me, it was fun playing with that development of that book as well. I just, as a graphic designer, like I got to geek out.
It's at this stage, and I'm curious how Mog feels about this more on the art side, is that you need to have something clever with your book going on, such as a die cut out or glow in the dark, or some foil spots, or you need to have some amazing art or an artist who doesn't do covers. And I'm curious how you feel about that, Mog, because obviously from more of an art style, what do you think really makes the difference in a cover and a book selling to some degree on Kickstarter as far as the art side of things and even what's being done in print?
I honestly can't answer that question because that's all marketing, and I leave all of that to Rob. And I noticed, like, throughout my own experience, metal prints or any kind of different style of printing, you can never predict what the crowd will buy or want. It's almost like a speculative business where you are speculating that this style is going to this way of printing is going to become hot.
It's also with artists. I feel it's that way too, where there's a bunch of artists that I feel that come out of the woodwork. Steph Wilson's a good example of that. The early Steph Wilson covers, like that Chuck Pino did on Bilal, or Corey's Sister Mercy Steph Wilson book, those books are hot and they're a pain in the ass to find. I have both of them. And that Bilal cover is legitimately a good book to have. It doesn't pop up on eBay, and nobody would have expected it to be hot. It's a new school style. But then there's other books out there on Kickstarter that are really hot right now. And, it's from artists that nobody ever heard about and heard from. And it's such an interesting realm. And even with metals, like I've seen metals that nobody's been interested in, but people were interested in the, foil version of it. And I've seen books that, somebody had an abundance for years, and then all of a sudden those books get hot. It's really interesting. And I mean, I'm in this space, both indie and mainstream. And, I'm not a retailer per se. I'm slightly retailed. And it's not the person's fault who sold it. It's just not moving the way it should be moving. And I don't mind carrying a little bit of debt because it's not expensive. It was like a $40 package, which isn't terrible. But at the same time, I'm not about to jump into the indie foray with investing in big books ever again on a retail package. But we're going to get to that, I promise. Obviously, that's all the variants. That's this. That's the entire retailer kit. So we're getting there sooner. So let's talk about that because that's super important, I think. And what is that like for you to take care of retailers? because as we were sort of stating is that a lot of comic shops are getting away from DC, Marvel, and they want to bring indie comics into their stores. And this is one way how to do it. And it's not just that you're giving them, 30 copies of Snowpaw. You're giving them a whole sampling of something. And what is that
so,
like to do that at a cheaper rate?
Yeah, and I always try to offer like something that's retail oriented that to kind of like also it to kind of spread the reach and also make it affordable for retailers too. So like with all these, they get 4 of the singles of Nightwolf 1 through 5 as well as Mog's cover for Snowpaw, and then I get through a couple of the trades out there because not everybody reads singles and not everybody reads trades, so it's kind of like you got to have a little bit of everything. And it's still free shipping and it's half off retail. So that makes it affordable for them to be able to put it in their shops and still make a cut of it.
And then also we got this right here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is important because obviously, I've been saying it for a while. The things that dictate everything is big on-demand, big libraries, and customization. And this is a form of that where you can get 100 copies of Snowpaw built with the art, and figuring that out. And so, what's the story behind this? I have a similar tier in my Kickstarter dealing with this, and a lot of people are doing it. And so, what's the story behind this and really building all this out?
Yeah, so a lot of retailers like having that personal exclusive deal to just their shop, and being able to have like input on like what they want to show. Basically saying, hey, this is what I want for the cover with my logo, and since Mog's commissions are are closed, she's willing to do some with the sketch covers. But for something like this, that's a little bit more negotiable with her and her manager. But Carlos is a little bit more available, so that's why it's particularly geared towards him. But yeah, so it means having this separate base exclusive makes it for them a higher value, because then they could set the price for themselves and make a little bit more money back by doing this. Because then nobody else is selling it. They could do, especially when you have a hot number 1, with your store logo on it. It just, they could they could CGC it. They can do whatever they want with it, and it makes it more profitable for them in the long run. It's not just they're making like $1 or $2 per issue.
And also, sometimes in business you lose money initially to make money in the long run. Mm-hmm. So at some point, I'm going to be getting into the exclusive game. And I don't mind losing money as a business the first exclusive or 2 if all of a sudden every book sells out and then I can't track down the book. And then you slowly, in the next one and the next one, raise up your prices, and then you sort of create the demand. And also, it's an attraction when you have store exclusives. And especially at this point where paying Marvel, paying DC, paying Image, and paying the licensing fees can get very pricey with the big boys, and the profit goes down. While with an indie book, there's more money to be made per se. It's also easier because you're not paying tremendous licensing fees, and you also have a lot more freedom. And there is going to be a discussion if somebody backs that tier, and there's going to be some input. And obviously, certain stores, there's a store called Gotham Comics, for instance.
Right.
Naturally, I don't think you'd be opposed if somebody said, hey, can we incorporate my comic store in the background?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I have no, issue doing that and trying to figure out how it works, again, for them and to make it, worthwhile. Like I said, even if they were to like that 750 tier, even if they charge $10 per issue for 100 issues, they're already making more than what they're paying for, and again, if they wanted to charge more, they could, because there's only 100 and it's exclusive to them. So, that's just something, extra nice for the retailers to help them make a little extra money as well.
And then obviously this is dope. Just the I think it's 6 medals.
Yeah, it's six
And
medals, but you'll also get the regular editions as well. So it's not just the medals; they're getting the printed versions as well, the paper versions of
so
all
if
those
you've never
characters.
bought a medal, let me explain to you a medal. So a medal is that the comic is bounded. So the cover is bounded to a metal, I guess, plate. And then they typically grade out nicer. They're shiny. They're more durable. They tend to go for more money, and they look nicer. And they also have a little bit more weight. They can be CGC graded as long as they fit in the holder. And if you want good examples of metal books, type in Zenoscope Metal on eBay, and you'll see those books go for $75 and up. And depending on the metal and depending on the exclusivity, some of those books go for a lot more. There are Zenoscope medals and a variety of other companies that have done medals that have gone for $300, $400, $500. There is a medal that is a one of one on Zenoscope that is going for about $700. It will probably sell for about $500 with the right buyer. So that should give you an example that medals are nice and that they do fetch a higher premium, and it's something that people really enjoy. Hopefully I sold the medal collection.
Hopefully. Yeah, no, it's those things, and it's for me, this is my first dive into them, and doing that. So I'm excited to for them to come out, and Fairy Metal is the ones who are producing them for me. So it's going to be a very
That's Jacob Stern, right?
yeah, I believe so.
I wanted to get him on, and we just never connected. So if he's listening and somebody wants to make that introduction, I would happily have him on because there's so many things. They do metal cards, and I actually
and they have their own series too. That they were.
I know it was just timing,
Yeah.
and sometimes things don't happen. Sometimes people are just like, oh, I can't get in or I can't get off work.
Yeah.
Because I want to do metal cards with them with my little elf. I own my elf, guys. I own my elf. I'm just saying. It's like Zelda meets Leafa from SAO. It's an awesome thing. It wasn't even that expensive. I hired an artist pretty cheap. I should have paid like 3 times what I paid, and I feel guilty for about 2 minutes, and then I smile because I've used that logo so many times now. She might be designing her a sister. If we reach a certain stretch goal in my Kickstarter, she's going to get a sister, my elf. But I digress right there. And then we got these packages, and this is sort of the biggest thing out of the bundle, where this is a mystery fun box. So I'm not so curious about the actual box because that's a new thing on Kickstarter. And I've seen a bunch of people do custom boxes, which I think is cool. And I love custom boxes. Don't get me wrong. I think it's cool. I think it's clever. But that's something that I've seen a lot as of lately. I'm more interested in the CGC component of it because that's interesting. What's the deal behind that? Because that's fascinating to me.
So the CGC is basically like it's when I'm going to order a bunch of them. Once the book's printed, send off to them, and then I'm going to get a bunch back in, and then I'm going to fill 25 boxes and not know what's in there after that, and it's a mystery to even me. So you get all of the covers. That's a guarantee. So that's not even the mystery. That's a guarantee. You'll also get a mystery one of the CGC covers of Snowpaw. It could be a metal one. It could be one of the other ones. Who knows? It's a mystery. And it could be whatever it's graded at. Usually they tend to come out like a 9.8. And I've done that several times with I had a Nightwolf box that I did that with, and I've sold out of them all but like 2. And so this is kind of similar in that sense that we're going to be doing that, and plus other random merchandise will go in the box as well to get like a $200+ value. That all and it's not only with the box. It's not.
Let me ask a question. Are the books you're sending out, are they going to be signed or are they going to be just blue labels?
No, they're going to be signed. They're going to be the signature series.
I have to ask these questions. People need to know.
Of course. Yeah.
These are legitimate questions here.
Yeah. And what's nice about this is going to be a collector's piece too, because I not only will ship everything in here bubble wrapped, but I will also bubble wrap the box and make sure it's protected in another box and ship that, so that like you can keep this on a shelf, put stuff in it for storage, whatever you want to do with it. It's also going to be a collector's piece in itself.
I don't know what Tom is talking about in this. I have no idea what Tom is talking about in this. So if Tom wants to explain himself in the comments, he's more than welcome to. But I do like the fact that it's signed. That's actually super cool. I also appreciate the 7 people still watching. You're like my 3rd highest viewing thing, next to Ivan Tao. It's tough. It's tough to top Ivan. And Ivan was a trooper. He did it at like 2 in the morning.
Oh wow!
2 in the morning, guys. I see this Tom.
He's giving me some shit.
It's all right.
Yeah, Tom and I are actually going to be doing a panel together at the Akron Comic Con, and it's my first panel, and it's an honor to do it with Tom. Who is an industry great out there.
You're going to catch the bug. I did 50 of them, and on various topics, and it gets addicting. But I've never been invited, never been paid, and I will quietly walk away because I'm now making money in this industry, not being at a con. Apparently, you have a fan, Mark. Apparently, this guy over here, who apparently gives me a lot of shit. So I'm not thrilled with. No, Larry knows I'm fucking with him. But I digress right there. Obviously, a lot of shit's going on. There's a bunch of omega, beta, alpha tiers. Pretty much you can get anything you want. You have a $2,500 tier. I don't know what's wrong with you. So God, I don't even want to know what that is. I think that's one of the most expensive tiers that I've ever seen on Kickstarter, which I don't know if it's a joke. I don't know if you're serious, and I'm curious who's going to back it.
Well, like I said, it's so Mog's cover is ground gemstones. She used that ground gemstones in her paints for her original painting. It's not even just like an inked cover with digital colors. It's actually painted with ground gemstones. I mean, so and that 2,500, I'm not getting all of that. That a lot of that's going to be going to her too, so she's getting paid.
So explain to me, Mog, what exactly that painting is, because I think it's really interesting, this entire thing, where you obviously grounded gemstones and some other stuff, and even the idea of it, because this is something that I wouldn't even think about. I come up with crazy ideas from a intellectual standpoint that shouldn't work. But what's the story behind this? Because I think a lot of people want to know.
Well, I just went medieval.
She went medieval on this.
Yeah.
That's how they used to paint.
Okay, I'll ask the question simpler. You could ground up coffee. You could ground up sugar. You could make alcohol. You can, mix mustard and ketchup. Gemstones. Like, what? How did that even come into play? Because I think of 15 things to grind up before I think of gemstones. And what I mean by 15 things before, I think like gemstones is like number 150 on the list. Like I'm like, I'll grind up coffee today. And well, I don't have any coffee to paint with. Gemstones it is. Like, yes, Tom, a mustard cover. Tom, if you book me for a cover, I'll do a mustard cover for one of your books.
I relish
but no ketchup, no relish, and definitely no hot sauce. Just plain mustard. It will be different colored mustards. I will go through all the mustards. It will be mustard up. I will mustard a cover for you, Tom.
Okay, so
getting back to gemstones, though.
That's a very good question, and the reason why in the painting world, there's something we call it light fast, And the cheaper the quality or biodegradable it is, like for example mustard, coffee, or tea, they will just degrade in, instantly, and then we call them fugitive. So those paints are fugitive. But colors that are very high quality, especially like back in the medieval times, they created their own, they ground their own stones and stuff like that. Those things, they last for centuries. So these things, because of that and because of the archivable quality itself, I was very curious, and also I just wanted to see how it reacts. Because when you own an original, it's different than seeing it in a digital screen or on a print. An original is entirely different. That's one thing fascinating thing I realized is it changes color during the day. I mean, the mood is a little bit different depending on how you light it, and sometimes it can be very dark, and sometimes it can be very light. Depends on how you shine the light. And it
The
was
angle
more of
of
a,
hitting it.
yeah. And I tend to be very analytical in nature, so I like experimenting in different paints. And I know it was very expensive, but I really wanted to know because I only read about it when I was in college, how these masters back in the medieval time would make their own paints and use very expensive stones to get that pure color. And I just wanted to know what it is like. So that my curiosity, just got the better of me, and I just started experimenting. So that's what it is.
I think it's just fascinating because I, again, am not artistic to the same degree as painting and all that stuff. And even just throwing that out there and doing something and playing around with it and even experimenting, I think it's really, really cool. And I just would never even think about doing it that way. And for me, I just think it's fun and I think it's interesting. And I'm super curious about this because I can't draw for shit. I'm not going to pretend I understand where my strength is. I know how to do a lot of things, but I wouldn't even conceptualize this idea. And it's so fascinating when people do that. And I'm watching people do art and things of that nature. And then even this goes beyond that because now you're actually using a material that I don't think I've ever seen anybody on Kickstarter do something like this. So it's kind of cool in a lot of ways. And so obviously it's probably worth $2,500. So whoever buys it, I think you're going to get a steal on that thing.
Yeah, it's literally a jewel painting, and it will outlive you and outlast you.
That's an
Maybe.
investment for your children's children.
Hey, you know what is? There's plenty of rich people in the world, and you know what is? You just got to find the right buyer. That's all it is. In which a bunch of people have money. I know how much people spend on comics every month, and somebody wants this. It's just a matter of finding the right buyer. So having said all that, I do want to back out. I know I'm missing a few rewards. Obviously, you're fully funded, and now it's just a matter of getting as much money as humanly possible so that we go through all your stretch goals, and then you have to come up with new ones. And you have a good time doing that. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as you come up with the new ones, we're going to make your life harder and try to make it come with you more.
Because we want to make more comics, right? And that's what this is all about, is getting the funds to make more comics.
Yeah, a lot of stuff is like that. I'm going to be in a similar predicament in, today's the 26th, 7 days. 7 days. I'm going to be in a very interesting position next Tuesday. It's going to be a blast. I just need to find somebody who's high profile, and I have 2 or 3 people in mind. And if I pull it off, I'm going to be the world's greatest showman ever. Having said that, though, obviously, I want to talk about Kickstarter, and my favorite thing to talk about is Kickstarter. And what do you think the future state of Kickstarter looks like? We're just going to get to the controversial question.
The future state of Kickstarter? I hope that it'll continue to grow and develop. Honestly, like, what would be amazing is if like BackerKit and Kickstarter become like one ginormous thing, so I don't have to pay 2 different fees.
Yeah, I don't even know what BackerKit is. What do you think, Mog, on the future state of Kickstarter? Obviously, participating in it, there are no wrong answers. There are just better answers than others.
I think it's great, and we should continue making more comics and it's a great platform to pursue your own dreams and actualize it.
I mean, you would think the Kickstarter would, like, considering the fact that like comics is one of the highest funding categories now, they would be like, hey, you know what? Let's start a publishing company and take some of these people who are making us money and make more.
Yeah. I'm very concerned about Kickstarter personally, where I think there is an oversaturation on it. I think that Kickstarter has gone through a big boom in the last 22 months. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a bunch of people who are in the chat who are going to disagree with me, and I'll take the flack for it. But I am concerned that it's looking a lot like the 1990s with Image. And I understand it's not going to be as detrimental, but I am concerned about the whole thing as a comic industry as well. And it's the same problem with entertainment, where entertainment is oversaturated. You look at Netflix that has a $20 billion budget. Disney has a $14 billion, budget. Amazon's content production budget is huge. And there is an oversaturation. And at a certain point, we're going to go off the cliff. It's just that how bad are we all going to fall? And I'm very concerned. And maybe I'm wrong. And hopefully I am wrong. At a certain point, we're going to go. I don't know what just happened.
That was an echo. Sorry.
Oh my God! It scared the shit out of me. I got enough problems. I'm already having like a breakdown as a human being today. Like,
yeah, I was trying to reply to a comment, and then it did, like, the volume kicked on, and I was like, shit.
Oh my God! So that's how I feel about it, and hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong on it, but I'm very concerned, and I'm in the investing side of it. So that's how I view it, and. That's how I view it. But enough about me, guys. Enough about me. We're not going to go deep into market speculation. That was last night with Just Joshing. If you want to know about market speculation, definitely pay attention to me last night on Just Joshing. It's a fun interview, and I will be talking about that on Friday as well. But having said all that, and great. I have this guy, Rob Multari, in the stream. I'm going to show his thing right here. I don't know who this is. You should just start commenting, telling me how good of a job I'm doing. I would just start laughing. I'm stepping all that up.
I love Del. Del is such a funny dude.
I don't know anybody in this chat, which is crazy. You all should DM me and introduce yourselves if you actually have a comic, because I know 4 people in this chat. And it's horrific. And no. Because all my circles are so interesting. Again, I knew I'm going to get flack for it. And I know exactly where I stand, and I'm happy to debate anybody on this topic. So if somebody wants to debate me on this topic of comic book investing and oversaturation, feel free to hit me up. It'll be civil. It will all be friends at the end of it. And when I'm right, I'll buy everybody around at the bar. But anyhow, having said all that, obviously we've been talking for a while, and I want to give both of you an opportunity to promote yourselves. So where can people back this Kickstarter? Where can people break your stretch goals? Where can people, if they don't see a goal they want, I'm sure that something can be arranged. If it's possible, maybe, I don't know. But even going further into that, obviously, where can people support this thing? Both on social media, on Facebook, Kickstarter, as I stated, and a variety of other things, and even going beyond this, because support now is not just Kickstarter. It's also other projects like Nightwolf and other things that Mog, you're doing, and a variety of other things.
Yeah, so like the URL below says, lonewolfcomics.com/Knowpaw. That's the vanity URL. It'll take you directly to the Kickstarter. So also lonewolfcomics.com, that is the website for my self-publishing company, where I host all of my self-publishing titles like Nightwolf and Snowpaw. I have a website or an e-commerce site there, the shop that you can buy back issues and the variant covers and other stuff. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Lone Wolf Comics and at Rob Multari. And then Mug, where you can find it.
Right on, dude. Good intro. Thank you, Rob.
I feel like the scarecrow.
It's very easy. I make it very simple for you guys. Right here, Mog Park. Okay? At Mog Park. Okay? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, ArtStation, literally Mog Park. And for my older works, though, you can find me as Dubu Komdori at DeviantArt. But nobody, I guess some people still go for DeviantArt.com. And I do a live stream every Sunday at Artist Alley Shopping Network, which is AASN. Just type in AASN. You don't have to type in all the letters. And it's at 6 p.m. California time every Sunday. So just drop by and see what's up with me, or just say hi. It's about 2 hours live drawing. And I sometimes sell my old sketches. Sometimes I do auctions. Sometimes I play a game with you guys. It all depends on how I feel. And also every month I do a show called Draw and Bid, like I said, and it always happens at the last Sunday of the month. And it's always a different theme per month. And again, like I said before, this month's theme is Final Fantasy 14. And usually we average about 20 entries a month. And there's always a few that, get into sometimes in the hundreds of dollars where it does get sold. But don't expect like that. I'm here to really support the art community and artists, just to network each other. We're having just a fun time. Don't expect to make money there, though. And the bidding, however, the bidding war is brutal. It really is brutal. It's funny. I love seeing that. And like Rob said before, my commissions are closed. So tough luck.
Ouch.
Which means that when they open up at some point again, you got to be quick on the draw. That's what it means. At some point, your commissions will be open up, I'm presuming. And when they open up, you got to be quick on the draw. And, is that's the way it's supposed to be. You snooze, you lose. That's all I'm going to say. So obviously, I've been saying this a while. I do know Niobe Comics, and I just want to defeat that comment. Just letting you know, Larry, I know you very well. And I'm actually excited for that book. I'm actually super excited for that book. But having said that, and I'm going to keep on saying it, you have to support indie comics. And what that means is you actually have to back Kickstarters. And preferably, obviously, you should be backing Rob and Mog Park's Kickstarter and Snowball and everything that's going on. Because that's first and foremost, in the indie world, and I think a bunch of people in the chat know this, and I'm going to keep saying it, is that we're not DC, we're not Marvel, we're not Image. The backers make a lot of these books possible, and, well, money makes the world go round. So you have to back a book. Whether you're backing it digital or you're backing it physical, no pledge is too big or too small for that matter, and everything helps. And even going beyond that, though, backing now isn't enough anymore. And I think it's safe to say that if you back it, that's great, but share that you backed it. Tweet it out on Twitter, share it on your Facebook wall, share it if you have a Facebook page, share it. My Facebook group is pretty open. People can share whatever they want in my Facebook group, minus eBay and porn. The reason why is that Facebook flags that stuff. Legitimately, from a business standpoint, if you put smut in a group, it actually fucks up the algorithm. It's really not good. But and I don't want people to sell stuff on eBay because I don't want the competition. It's all about me. It's all about me. This entire show is about me, and I permit people to comment and enjoy. No, I actually care about comments, guys. Having said all that, though, sharing is really important because Facebook's algorithm and Instagram's algorithm and Twitter's algorithm is not what it used to be. And there's projects that I haven't seen, and they're 20 days old, and I'm like, how did I not see this on day one? And it's a real issue. And so sharing gets that out there. Also, remind me if you have a Kickstarter, or remind people, and I know some people have issues with that, but guess what? I'm busy. So say, hey, got a Kickstarter going on. Helps me out tremendously, and I guarantee you there's a bunch of other people who don't see your stuff either. So it's a big deal. So that's very important. And anything in that realm is super important. Sharing a like go a long way. Mm-hmm. Also, a thank you goes a long way too. And before I finish my pontification here and on my soapbox, I am also an indie content creator. Obviously, support my sponsor. If you need books printed, mix them. I also have Buy Me a Coffee. I appreciate every dollar that is thrown my way. It means a lot to me. Even though my sponsor covers a lot of stuff, I do a lot of live reads. Running this thing is expensive. I also have a Kickstarter dropping, dealing with season 3 of this show. A lot of cool perks. My digital bundle package is 24 books for $12. A lot of cool stuff, and some of the books aren't even out till February. So this is the first peek you're getting on certain books in my digital bundle. And a lot of negotiation went into it. And what I mean by that is I just asked. So if you want some cool stuff that's not out yet, my Kickstarter's dropping November 1st, November 2nd. Just type in Pop Anime Comics. It'll come up. I appreciate all support. Having said that, though, go back this book. There's a lot of freebies with it. And then if you got a little extra money also, come over to my side of the aisle. And maybe if we do enough money as a stretch goal, we can make a mustard cover for Big Dog Inc. So having said that, I don't know how good of a cover it'll be, but that's where I'm done here. And I'm going to let both of you have the final words.
Totally lost my train of thought after that now. Yeah, so, we have 8 more days left on this campaign. And so, yeah, tomorrow it's 1 week left. And, we got a lot of stretch goals to cover, a lot of great new, milestone rewards, a lot of freebies that we can still unlock and have everybody get. So, head over to lonewolfcomics.com/snowpaw and come join the Wolfpack today.
Yeah, come on. Become a Wolfpack, yo. Don't be a pussy.
I just snorted.
I should have worn my NWO shirt. Or play Werewolves of London. Going out. And that would have been great. But
yeah, nice.
or my John
Best
Cena.
tagline ever, said John.
shirt.
Or Tom said best tagline ever.
I mean, I'm just saying, guys. I'm just saying that mustard cover. I think we have a winner there. I'm just saying. I'm not that expensive. I will pay you to do it. So on that note, I don't think I could top myself. And if anybody else wants a mustard cover by me, I am more than happy to provide. I do need the money. My rates are $100. I will provide the mustard, but I will not provide the ketchup. And on that note, that's a wrap right there, and not the crunchy kind.